Terry, when you were in high school, did you play basketball?
No.
You didn't?
No, I did not.
Well, I played, but not well.
Well, that would have been me had I played.
All right. But there was a young man who left high school and then went to the pros, and he just signed a lifetime contract with Nike. And guess how much they're going to pay him for taking that round sphere full of air and putting it into a hoop?
I can only imagine in today's world, it's got to be, are we talking seven figures, or where are we at?
A lot more than that.
Really?
$500 million.
Oh, my word.
LeBron James, he's the ace on the courts these days. $500 million to punch a round ball through a hoop.
Yeah. So the moral to this story is
we
should have played basketball in high school. That's exactly right.
Yeah. I boxed. You don't get paid anything for that. Listen,
we might have had to eat our Wheaties and grow a little taller, too. Yeah,
whatever.
Just maybe.
Okay. Well, it wasn't workplace violence. The FBI says the killers in California last week had been radicalized, quote, for quite some time. And they're still wondering why they turned to Islamic terrorism and pledged allegiance to ISIS.
Well, meanwhile, terrorism has become a big political issue on the campaign trail, too. And now Donald Trump is proposing to stop all Muslims from entering the United States. Dale Hurd has the story.
The FBI says San Bernardino killers 28-year-old Syed Farouk and his 29-year-old wife Tashfeen Malik had spent a lot of time and effort planning the attack that killed 14 of Syed's co-workers.
Both subjects were radicalized and have been for quite some time.
The couple had taken target practice at an area gun range just a few days before the attack. And the FBI now says 19 pipe bombs were found in the couple's home, not 12 as originally stated. Another sign they were planning terrorism for some time. This new photo shows the pair arriving for the first time in the U.S. as a newly married couple in July 2014. Officials now trying to determine if the Pakistani-born Malik helped radicalize her American husband. In the wake of the San Bernardino massacre, a stunning proposal from Republican presidential frontrunner Donald Trump. A blanket ban on all Muslims coming into America.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States.
Trump's plan brought immediate condemnation from his Republican rivals. Jeb Bush called him unhinged. Chris Christie called it ridiculous.
This is the kind of thing that people say when they have no experience and don't know what they're talking about.
Even former Vice President Dick Cheney agreed.
This whole notion goes against everything we stand for and believe in.
New figures show that since the Paris terror attacks on November 13, the State Department has admitted 237 Syrian refugees into the United States. All were Muslim, except for one Christian. Meanwhile, a leaked 24-page dossier from the Islamic State shows the group President Obama once dismissed as the junior varsity has a sophisticated plan to build a nation with government departments, a treasury, and an economic program. It could be a sign that the Islamic State is getting stronger in Iraq and Syria, and that President Obama's strategy to defeat ISIS simply isn't enough to get the job done. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
It's an amazing thing, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen, that we have this myopia that has enveloped the White House. He just doesn't see it. He refuses to see it. But these people are terrorists. Now, here's the thing. Like it or not, we have got to crush ISIS. And unless we crush them in Syria and crush them in Iraq, they will metastasize like cancer and spread all over, and they're very sophisticated. They need to be crushed militarily by overwhelming force. We cannot just drop a few bombs on them and think we'll put them out of the way. There has to be a major commitment by all the nations involved, and Syria has to be dealt with. Whether Assad has got to go or not, that's not necessarily the issue, but something has to be done. That, again, is a cancer right in the middle of the society that we live in. So it's got to be done, but the president doesn't want to do that. He just doesn't want to do it. He refuses to call this thing Islamic terrorism, and he gives us a tutorial on Sunday about how we should be tolerant. And did you hear Yale's statistics on that thing? Mosul was a Christian city. ISIS overran it and drove essentially every Christian out of their capital they'd had for hundreds and hundreds of years. Now, when we open our doors, 265 or so Muslims come in, one Christian. Who has been persecuted in the Middle East? Christians. It isn't being discriminatory to say these are the victims of terror and they need to be granted a sanctuary, whereas the Muslims have not been. That's a no-brainer. But will remain to be seen whether Trump's rather interesting statement helps him in the polls or hurts him. One of our reporters thinks it'll help him. I don't have an opinion on that. We'll find out. Well, while ISIS has been the focus of attention in the Middle East recently, Iran, despite all that treaty that we spent so much time and effort putting together, they've been building up its military, and now they've just tested another nuclear missile in defiance of the United Nations sanctions. Wendy Griffith has that story.
That's right, Pat. Iran carried out the missile test in late November, according to what a senior U.S. official told Fox News. The missile can carry a nuclear warhead, and it has a range of 1,200 miles. The test violated 2 resolutions of the UN Security Council, as did a similar test by Iran in October. But so far, the Council hasn't done anything, and it's still debating how to respond to the test from October. Well, Christians are used to news of their brethren being massacred and persecuted in the Middle East and elsewhere overseas. But can believers here in the U.S. and other developed countries do anything to stop it? As Paul Strand reports, many experts are wrestling with that question.
Some of the most active of advocates for persecuted Christians gathered at Washington's Heritage Foundation to sound the alarm.
It is genocide. It is systematic, it is targeted, and it is happening.
So can anything actually be done about this? I mean, it seems when you kill some of the persecutors, it just breeds more. That's the purpose of this panel, to discuss, can anything actually be done to stop this martyring of Christians? The panel began with Roger Severino of the Heritage Foundation, quoting this promise from ISIS to Christians.
You will not have safety, even in your dreams, until you embrace Islam. We will conquer your Rome, break your crosses, and enslave your women.
Patrick Kelly of the Knights of Columbus says Syrian and Iraqi Christians can't even escape their killers in refugee camps.
The Christians in the camps are being targeted, that ISIS and other militias are sending assassins into the camps.
All faiths are under attack when one faith tries to kill others because they do not believe.
A military solution is possible, but I would say a military solution is always a temporary fix.
Kelly points out you can't kill every murder-minded religious fanatic.
What we have is a religious sensibility that is one of violence, and I think to tackle that is a larger problem. But I don't think it's impossible.
Like Nadine Mayenza's Hardwired group is trying to stop the killing by changing minds, training one group after another of overseas thought influencers.
What we're doing is the British government is funding this work, and what we're doing is trying to change the way people perceive religious freedom and human dignity in human life. And we have to be able to counter the ideology that's coming from Saudi Arabia, frankly, that's radicalizing Muslims around the world.
Our churches are missing in action.
Georgetown University's Timothy Shaw says one problem is apathy among America's believers.
If 0.1% of Christians in America were really outraged and mobilized, we would see political action across the board.
Shaw says Christians need to be demonstrating, writing, advocating, demanding action on things like genocide resolutions.
It is supremely ridiculous, if I may say, to ask the Obama administration to bear the moral weight of this issue when we don't.
Paul Strand, CBN News, the Heritage Foundation.
Pat, it's a good question. Can Christians do anything to stop it?
Wendy, I think what we've got to do in terms of Islam is identify what it is. Islam is a political system that is intent on world domination. It isn't a, quote, religion as such. It is a political system masquerading as a religion. And You can call it a religion if you want to, but invariably, when you get to the core of it, it is based on world domination. And again, the world is divided into two parts. It is the world of Islam or the world of the unbelievers. And the unbelievers have got to be converted, and if they won't convert peaceably, they need to be put to the sword. So this is an aggressive military discipline bent on world domination. And I think if we begin to realize that we're not dealing with a religion, people say, oh, it's just terrible. You shouldn't discriminate one religion versus the other. Well, yes, you can if one religion is actually a political system that is intent on dominating you and killing you. Christianity isn't intent on dominating and killing people. It just isn't. It's a peaceful exercise for the soul. It isn't intent on setting up a government with a specific kind of oppressive law called Sharia and territorial ambitions for the entire world. That's what these people want, and I think we've got to recognize that and tell it like it is. Wendy.
Pat, turning to presidential politics, Ted Cruz is now ahead of Donald Trump for the first time in the Republican presidential race in Iowa. A new Iowa poll by Monmouth University shows Cruz with 24% of GOP support there, while Trump is at 19%. Cruz gained steam after earning the endorsement of conservative Iowa Congressman Steve King. Marco Rubio is also gaining traction in Iowa, challenging Trump for second place with 17% of support. Ben Carson has fallen back, but he's still in fourth place with 13%. But a CNN poll shows Trump with a strong lead over Cruz. The Iowa caucus is now less than 2 months away. Some good news for Americans hitting the road this holiday season. Oil prices have fallen again, this time to the lowest in nearly 7 years. Oil dropped below the key level of $40 a barrel to $37.50. Some experts say that it could eventually fall as low as $20 to $25 a barrel. That could drop the national average for a gallon of gasoline much lower. Right now, it sits at just over $2 a gallon, but in some states, it's as low as $1.80. Pat, why does the price of oil keep falling?
Because the stars aren't aligned to help the oil producers. Actually, when the pumps are wide open, the Saudis decided that they were going to run their wells full tilt and produce over, well, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 million barrels a day. Now, once they did that, they said, we're going to maintain our market share regardless of the price. So the Iranians are coming on board, and they said, well, we're going to run ours. And the Iraqis are saying, we'll run ours. And then the Kuwaitis and all the others say, well, if you're running yours full tilt, we'll run ours full tilt. And therefore, we have a glut. And interestingly enough, they were trying to put the shale producers in America out of business. Instead of that, the shale producers say, we can handle it too. And America is producing in excess of 10 million barrels a day. So there's a worldwide glut of oil, a couple million barrels a day coming out that there's no place to go except into tanks, tankers, or storage depots. And the price is cratering. It could hit $20, and if it does, it's going to be painful because there'll be thousands of people who will lose their jobs. There'll be hundreds of oil producers that are going bankrupt. It'll be chaos. And I know if you're driving a car, you say, well, isn't that nice? My gasoline's costing $1 less a gallon. But overall, it's going to be extremely painful. So I just point that out, ladies and gentlemen. One person's gain may be somebody else's loss.